And so here we go. Again, welcome to our first presenter for the day, Juliet Trail. You've probably read in the description of our conference that she's going to be addressing building compassionate networks in education and society. I'm not going to take up any more of her time. It's her chance to shine here. So again, thank you for coming and enjoy what Juliet has to share with us.
All right, hello and welcome everyone. It's lovely to be here with all of you. And just a little bit about me before I begin my talk. I have worked in higher education for more than 20 years and have a PhD in education where I focused on studying emotional intelligence in higher education workspaces. So I looked at the workplace and what we can do in terms of best practices. My cat wants to join me. This is Sorsha. And I left the full-time position at the university at the start of 2020, but I still work with a contemplative organization, Sea Hearts, which I will mention more about in my talk. So I'll save that. And I also work with a group called the Coincidence Project as the executive director of that nonprofit. It's a global initiative dedicated to illuminating the invisible currents that connect and unify us. And we have a nice website, the Coincidence Project, all written out, .net. And free events. We have a speaker series and a coincidence cafe where you can come and share your own stories and questions around synchronicity and coincidence. And we have new themes and topics and hosts every month for these. So I would welcome any of you interested in those topics there as well. And then I founded an initiative called Courageous Compassion Connection, because those were the three qualities that I see are needed most desperately in our times. We really need to connect to one another. And then in what manner might we wish to connect? I think we should connect compassionately. And then what's it going to take to do that? It's going to take courage. It's going to take a lot of courage to really build connections that are compassionate in nature across our differences in a global world, more and more global and digital as well as in person. There's just a lot that we need to span in these connections. And I'll definitely be speaking more about my philosophy on this in the talk today. I'm a musician as well. I have a band with my husband called Unheard Sirens Incorporated. So I have a bachelor's and master's in music. And I'm an animal and nature lover. My cat is now very cozy. So I have some slides that I want to share with everyone today. So I'm going to bring those up. All right, and I'm going to change the view on my screen. So thank you all so much for being here. There will be opportunity later in the time today for us to do some Q&A. And I am going to lead a practice towards the second half of our time together. And I will have you go into some small groups to kind of process what I've discussed in the talk and also that practice experience before we come back for Q&A. So that's the overall time management for this talk today. Let's see, let me get to this. So I'd like to open with just a quick moment of practice, a minute of practice together here with all of us in this beautiful opportunity. Thank you to Donna for convening us for the Mindful Conversations Conference. And I hope you'll all be able to take in as much as you have time to do here live today and tomorrow or on the videos later. And mindfulness is a gift to us all. So I invite all of us to just gently close the eyes or lower the gaze. Having the camera on or off is fine. And just bring your awareness inside the body internally for a moment. Pausing to notice whatever is here for you in this moment. and noticing that the body is breathing and bringing that breath fully into your awareness. And then I invite you to settle into this 4-line sort of mantra. Breathing in, I calm my body. Breathing out, I smile. Dwelling in the present moment, I know this is a wonderful moment. Breathing in, I calm my body. Breathing out, I smile. Dwelling in the present moment, I know this is a wonderful moment. Breathing in, I calm my body. Breathing out, I smile. Dwelling in the present moment, I know this is a wonderful moment. Just take another moment for yourself. If there's anything that you need to do, maybe a little stretch or just a little movement to feel more relaxed and at ease and present. Let's check in and see what you need. If there's a different way you need to sit, feel more comfortable in our Zoom conference together. Just taking care of yourself as we arrive together. And then gently opening the eyes, bringing the awareness back into our connected virtual space, back into our group, our community here. So welcome and thank you all again. It really is my pleasure to be with all of you. And I'm just going to speak for a couple of minutes and then I'll go back and I have a few slides. So no need to leave the slides up when I'm not really going to be going through them right now. See if I can convince my cat. She's so comfortable. See if I can convince her to lay near me instead of on me. Nice thing about working from home is we can have some fur companions or feathered or scaly or finned nearby and plants as well keep us company. So in just the past 3 years, since the start of 2020, at least 15 people that I know have committed suicide. The youngest of these was only 12 years old in middle school. And the others were teens and young adults, mature adults, elders, and everyone they've left behind is devastated. Obviously, they were in great suffering to choose to end their lives. And I see all around us that we have a crisis in the world right now. And I see it as a crisis in how we take care of ourselves. And it starts at that core of how we treat ourselves. And we can have a lot of harsh self-treatment that can lead to excessive anxiety and depression, various types of mental distress, even suicide. But the crisis is really a spiral. So it starts at that core of how we treat ourselves, but then it also loops around and it impacts how we treat one another, how we take care of one another. And then it loops around again, widening, and it also impacts how we take care of the environment and how we take care of the environment of society, the human to human community, but also the wider ecosystems and environment on the globe. And I think too many of our change efforts are not sustainable, The short term, they're not as successful as people wish they were, often because we're not seeing that these are all connected. They're all part of the same core problem, a crisis in how we take care of ourselves and our world. And I think because these are all linked, that there's a new way to address it at all three levels. And that's really what I want to focus on talking about today. So the solution to how we take care of ourselves, as I see it, is compassion. And it's important to define our terms because people use words, but we use them meaning different things. So for me, compassion means acting in ways that can reduce pain, harm, or suffering. And compassion also means acting in ways that increase health and well-being for ourselves or for other beings. And it's not only empathy. Those get confused a lot. But empathy is the capacity that we have to feel inside our own bodies the pain or emotion or distress that another is experiencing. Compassion takes that capacity and turns it into a passionate commitment to act in ways that can help to increase the safety and well-being of that other or to decrease their pain or suffering. And it's not just simplistic or fluffy or naive to talk about compassion. It actually takes immense amounts of thoughtfulness, reflection, and courage for us to think about each of our actions or behaviors toward ourselves or towards others, and then to really act on, to implement the decision that's going to do the greatest amount of good for the greatest number of other beings that's possible. So I think it's time in our world for a compassion revolution. And it's urgent that we go ahead and act at all of these three levels as soon as possible. We need to create more positive change. Just to share a few statistics about how this is showing up in the world. Just in America, there are 50 million Americans with a mental health diagnosis, and a quarter of those cases are severe. So that's 12.5 million people. There are so many more that are struggling and suffering that don't have or even need a mental health diagnosis, but they're still in distress. They're still in a lot of pain. And then in the workplace, 89% of people reported periods of burnout at work in the past year. It's estimated that it's costing, just in the US alone, $300 billion in losses due to workplace stress, which is something I use to help appeal to people that maybe say, I don't get this feely heart stuff, but give me the bottom line. How does this matter? You know, so even the people amongst all of our communities who really care about how businesses thrive, it has a direct toll on the businesses. When those who are in it, those of us who make up all of our initiatives and workforces and workplaces, as we struggle, everything is affected. And then it's not only humans. We tend to be very, very species centric. We think about humans and talk about humans a lot, but we're not the only ones dwelling on the planet. Right now, the loss of species is estimated to be at 1,000 to 10,000 times higher than natural extinction rate. And by 2070, there are some research studies suggesting as many as 3 billion humans, countless numbers of other beings, will be displaced and impacted by climate change. And I have the citations and footnotes for each of those statistics. If that's something any of you are interested in, I can let you know each of the research studies where those figures come from. So it is really urgent that we begin to act. And a lot of times people say, I know I need to change, but change what? Change how? You know, in what way can we change? Like, give me more specifics, because this is this nebulous sense of dread and things not being good or well or good enough or as beautiful as they could be, you know, that there's just something amiss. But what do we do? How do we behave in a way to make a big difference here? And that's where I see compassion making such a huge difference. So in part of my training, I'm also a teacher of mindful self-compassion. It's an 8-week course that's very similar to MBSR, mindfulness-based stress reduction. Both of these are 8-week courses. You can also do them in week-long intensives, or you can do shorter periods to learn some of the practices and try it out for a day or two. There's 2-day intensives. That's how I started with MSC, Mindful Self-Compassion, personally. And I do recommend it. It's a wonderful series of practices. I will lead one of the classic practices from Mindful Self-Compassion in just a couple minutes. And with MSC, I've now taught on compassion across 5 continents. And I've seen everywhere I've gone, in Africa and in India and in Europe and the UK, all across North America and in South America. I've seen people are struggling everywhere. And teaching compassion works. It does. We can increase. It's a natural capacity that's in everyone. We have moments of compassion and moments of absence of compassion. That's true for all of us. So you're not teaching something that's not there, but you are trying to bring something to the surface, make us more consciously aware of these qualities, and increase them or enhance our capacity to be in a mode of compassion in response to all kinds of things, including very difficult things. And we can teach it, we can increase it. We're not planning something that wasn't there. So I think it's important to say that, because I think it would be arrogant to suppose that we're giving something to someone that wasn't there. But we can, in our teaching and in our interactions, we can help to enhance or increase or bring to more conscious awareness these capacities that we all have. And I've also seen through the emotional intelligence research that I did in the workplace, in my case, specifically in higher education settings, although I've seen it in other for-profit settings as well, that compassion is at the heart of building positive relationships and reducing workplace stress. And right now, my work is focused on global initiatives and global organizations that are trying to put compassion into action. And I hope to keep doing this and keep working with leaders and organizations to think about how to tier our education and our contemplative practice in ways that can make the greatest amount of positive change for the greatest number of other beings, human and non-human, all the plant and animal beings that we're sharing this beautiful world with. And I hope that all of you, I'm actually already certain all of you are part of this, even if you didn't know my name for it. My particular name for it is the Compassion Revolution. I don't think any of you would be on this call if you weren't already a member of it. So welcome. Little did you know, hey, you're already part of you're already part of the solution. You're already part of addressing it. You're already part of making positive change. And thank you. But let's do it. Let's do it together. Let's really be part of a compassion revolution. I do believe we can transform our world. And it starts from the inside and then it goes out. So it's the self-other society. And I'll talk a little bit more here about that and go back to sharing my screen. So that is my philosophy on building a compassion revolution in our world. Let's see, I'm going to click back on this. So to describe this, you've already heard me do it, but part of what I'm using is what I'm calling an SOS framework. We're sending out an SOS to the world. And that's that we need to do the compassion work for self, then interpersonally for others, and then collectively for society. So I see these as, again, like a spiral or nested or ripple effect, as all being connected. You know, we are embedded in our relationship to others and then into our culture and our society, which includes ancestors and includes all of the things that have influenced and created our world and our identities. And that human society that we tend to focus on primarily is actually nested in the life and the reality and the context and the culture of all beings, the quality of life of all beings on the planet. So when I say self, others, and society, at the society level, I personally am always thinking both sort of, you know, humans, not all other beings. Humans are one of the beings. So when we say all beings, humans are there. It's not humans and nature. We're not separate from nature. We're all part of one thing, but we've created this illusion of our separateness. And in some of the contemplative practices, some of our world religious traditions, we look at that. We look at that duality, that we've created this separation of self from anything else. So there's a self-other separateness, but then there's also a human-centric myopia, this kind of nearsightedness, navel gazing, I've sometimes heard it called, that we constantly dwell and obsess about human matters and human things, and even our change efforts can sometimes kind of get fixated on only human quality of life. And there's so much work to be done to address and improve human quality of life across our country, across our planet. And yet, at the same time, we are actually part of the ecosystems we live in. We are part of a global ecosystem, and then sort of a regional ecosystem, and then the specifics of where we're sitting right now. And we are one of the many billions of beings in this ecosystem. And each one of us here, we're all sitting nested in an entire ecosystem, and we're all in relation to it. So that's the society level, is the collective level, and it's the society of all beings, not only humans. So that first layer is self-compassion. And I like this image of sort of holding, the torso and our solar plexus in the heart. That's a nice position. Sometimes if you haven't tried to meditate using a gesture, when I lead a practice on this later, you might try this, or even in your own personal practice sometime, you can try just using a gesture to help to signal to the body through touch that there's safety and there's support. And these are some of the fundamental cues for all mammals. We cue our nervous systems, cue on whether we can relax into the parasympathetic state of learning, digesting, resting, and just being really is that space where we can just exist. And then we can do whatever activity we need to do well when we're still in that kind of more safe, relaxed state of the parasympathetic nervous system. When we're under any threat, we can get activated and head over into the sympathetic nervous system, which is where we have the fight, flight, freeze response. And there's a whole flood in our body, a cascade of events that occur when we go into our stress response, when we're triggered in any way. And it's considered helpful stress when it's just a little bump. Like, oh, this is important, this really matters, I'm really worried about this, or a moment of getting out of the way of something that was dangerous or unhelpful. That's helpful stress. Eustress, eustress so a little bit of stress is okay. We're not just like lying around being blobs. We're not jellyfish floating, with no skeletons. We are responding to things in our world. So that stress response can be very helpful, keeps us surviving and even thriving. And it's when we go into chronic, perpetual, elongated periods of stress that it's considered distress. And the body can get stuck in the flood of all kinds of hormones and neurotransmitters and chemicals that impact the heart, they impact the respiration, they impact every muscle in our body, they definitely impact our brain. And as a whole being, we are not able to sleep at our best, to digest at our best. We're not able to learn well or easily. And many of our students across students or constituents, so if you're a professional working in mental health or law enforcement or medicine, and then all educators in the classroom, when the people we're working with are under stress and are triggered, they have trouble hearing, they have trouble seeing, they have trouble learning. And so our responses are not ideal. And the problem with this distress that's so pervasive in our world right now is when it becomes chronic, sometimes the body can't turn it off even when there is safety. Even when we could relax, our body is now stuck in the on or sympathetic response system. And we're just in fight, flight, or freeze all the time. We're hyper vigilant. We're looking for anything that's going to set us off again. And we can't feel safe. So that layer of self-compassion is so important for us to find some spaces and some supportive teachers and some community where we can begin to explore in our own bodies that feeling of well-being and of safety and support and positive encouragement. Even the opening practice that I did, it's a very compassionate, mindful breathing practice. It's a short series of 4 lines by Thich Nhat Hanh, the Vietnamese Buddhism teacher. And, breathing in, I am calm. Breathing out, I smile. Dwelling in this present moment, knowing this is a wonderful moment. And that may not have felt easy for you, and that may not have felt true for you, that this is a wonderful moment. This may be a very challenging moment, and that's true for all of us across the planet. A simple practice as simple as that, to calm with the breath, to smile, to be able to dwell in the present moment, that's actually very difficult. It's a level of privilege. Now, our world is in so much peril and jeopardy, so much stress, so pervasive, that it actually is privilege that we need to be aware of. If we can be calm, if we can smile, if we can dwell in the present moment and not be afraid of what's about to happen right outside our door or inside our own home in the next hour or 60 seconds, and we're not stuck in the past, going back and reliving and haunted by things that were difficult and challenging. It's a privilege if we can reside in a present moment in safety, to practice and to recognize that this is a wonderful moment. And so it's very imperative that we do this, that we begin to teach these self-compassion skills, because people can find a place of safe harbor even in the midst of storms, even in the midst of duress, even in the midst of hardship and really difficult circumstances. It is possible. And then there's the level of compassion for others, and it's not just humans. So when we build bonds, when we build relationships, when we can laugh, when we can dance, when we can move, talk, hug, all of these things, we can bring greater and greater amounts of compassion, interpersonal skills, and activate that compassion between us. And it's important to recognize we are not the only altruistic species. We are not the only beings who are thoughtful and have capacity for kindness. We are not the only species who practice adoption. You see in nature, many, many, many species, when there's a baby that's in need, there will be adults of a different species that'll take care of it. Those studying the forests are seeing that that's the way that trees thrive. They practice care for other seedlings in their midst, and it does not stop with those of their own species. So they are practicing interspecies care and compassion, even in the forest, and how they exchange nutrients to help take care of seedlings when there's any kind of drought condition or there's anything in the environment that's causing harm. The adult trees actually will suck nutrients from their very tall trunk systems and send them out through their root systems, and the mycelial networks across the forest floor to spread them out and send them to the younger trees, who are much more in jeopardy when there's peril. The young are very vulnerable whenever there's peril. So it's important to remember this compassion for others is interbeing compassion, not only just humans. And then there's our level of collective action of society. And there's the people we don't see. They're people we often forget. So here, rather than having huge group shots, which I'm really thinking about collective action at this level of society, I have a young activist with a very impactful sign here, allow me to have a future. And then I have somebody who looks like perhaps they do not have a home right now. Maybe they're living on the street and needing donations to have enough money for food. And their sign, seeking human kindness. There are people that we fail to continue to see as beings. We kind of objectify and then we dismiss them. And people that are experiencing homelessness are often in that condition that they're not seen. They're not cared for, recognized, or respected as another being that's just like me. But all of these beings are just like me, and not just the human ones. I really am speaking about all the beings. So I'm talking about building compassionate networks, and I'm building up to it because I think it's self, and then it's interpersonal, and then it's networks. Because it's not just building networks, it's building networks in what way, how, what kind of network? For me, it's a compassionate one. And I work with an organization called Sea Hearts. So I want to just talk just for a quick minute about Sea Hearts as a model for trying to build, working our best to build a compassionate network. So Sea Hearts is an acronym, stands for the Contemplative Higher Education Alliance for Research, Teaching, and Service. And our website is chearts.org, c-hearts.org. And our email list link is there. And I'm not going to read it out for those on the call, but maybe you can get back to the slides later if you want to join our email list. You can join it through the website too. So just go to c-hearts.org and you can sign up to get on our email list. This is how we keep everybody informed of opportunities in our community. So the next big opportunity for the Sea Hearts community is a conference in 2024, next year, February 29th through March 2nd, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. It's going to be hosted by the University of Kentucky and held in Lexington, Kentucky. We currently have a call for proposals that's open. That's a short link there, a bit.ly link. You can also get to it through the website. So there's a 2024 conference page and then the call for proposals. Those links are on the homepage and they're again on the conference page. So I hope some of you will join us. This is an in-person conference. We are contemplating, how appropriate, we are contemplating doing an international virtual conference, trying to bring the global community together in 2025. But it is so wonderful and such a gift and a privilege and an honor to be in person with anybody now since the pandemic. So our group really wanted to have another in-person gathering before we did another virtual one. We met virtually in 2021. We were able to meet in person in 2020, just before the pandemic struck. And then we were able to resume with a small group was able to meet in 2022. And we're getting back up to our normal threshold, which is about 100 participants or so. This year, we held it in March. And it's a growing organization. I really invite all of you to join it. It's for anybody interested in contemplation. We do talk a lot about it in the context of education, but it also in the context of society. These are a few images from some of our conferences over the years. We've hosted conferences every year but one since 2013. So we're currently about to host, 2024 will be our 11th conference. All were in person other than 2021 was a virtual gathering. And these are some of the images of different moments at the conferences. We had a keynote concert by Carrie Newcomer, who's a contemplative singer-songwriter and poet, one year. We had a wonderful half-day workshop with Joanna Braxton in this top middle photograph. And she is a professor emeritus at William and Mary University, and she was talking about identity and social justice and contemplation. And the three of us in the photo with her are my co-presenters that year on a session that we presented. It's one of my students named Michael Lofton and one of my dearest friends and colleagues, Dingani Matetwa from South Africa. And we presented on the need for diverse perspectives on contemplation and contemplative practice in education. And we were looking at different traditions across the globe, indigenous as well as other major world contemplative traditions. Then to the left, top left, is our group from 2023 this year. We do the first 2 days of the conference as an academic conference, and then we shift on the Saturday to a retreat day. Used to be a half-day retreat, but it's been going so well that we now have a full-day retreat. Last year, we were able to change locations from the conference hotel to actually go out to a nearby retreat center that was quite beautiful. At the bottom of the screen, you see a photo from a contemplative walk, mindful walk we did there that led to this look over the bend of a river that was quite beautiful. And some of the keynote speakers we've had in the last couple years are Stephen Murphy Shigematsu from Stanford, the poet Naomi Nye, who lives in Texas. She's Persian American and absolutely amazing. She's with one of our conference participants at a book signing after her talk. And then in the center of the screen, Arawana Hayashi, who does presencing theater. David Loy talks about eco-dharma change. And oh gosh, Ram Swaminlingam, I think is his last name, and he's a professor at the University of Michigan who taught a lot about using poetry and contemplation in the classroom with students to really deepen the learning experience. And a lot of our sessions are very interactive, so we are most often in circles. Here they're doing a dialogue practice, setting up an altar, and then on the far right, we were making music together. So there was a music making session. So I think it is the time for us to build these compassionate networks. And the networks need to stitch together the globe, to bring us all together. This conference is another effort at doing that. There was a wonderful conference in 2022 in Brazil that brought together 600 people doing this. There's another group in the UK and Europe called Contemplative Pedagogy Network, and they are bringing together some of the folks in that side of the globe. But we are hoping to do something internationally so we can get more folks from Africa, from Asia, from Australia, and then all these other existing networks together to keep providing support. We all need to learn new things. We want to share and show what we have learned. It's really important in academia for people to be able to present at conferences. It's part of how people demonstrate their expertise in their field and build a reputation beyond their institution. Those things are required for promotion at community colleges and four-year colleges, kind of universally. So we need opportunities for professional growth and development that are based on contemplation, that are putting that first and letting people across the disciplines, across endeavors, share what they're wondering about, what they're learning, what they know about, what they have mastery of, and then just having each other's backs. It can be a lonely road to be contemplative. Be trying to do this in a new way can feel pretty scary and isolating, and there's a lot of risk of burnout. So we need these compassionate networks to provide a safety net, to provide company and strong, passionate, compassionate relationships within the work that we're all trying to do. So we're going to do a practice in just a moment here, but I wanted to close with this lovely passage from the small book, Being Peace by Thich Nhat Hanh, whose practice I also used at the opening. So I have these bookends of the talk from Thich Nhat Hanh today. And it's important for us to remember a lot of things that he shares with us. He's a very simple and wise and eloquent person. Life is filled with suffering, but it's also filled with many wonders, such as the blue sky, the sunshine, and the eyes of a baby. To suffer is not enough. We must also be in touch with the wonders of life. They are within us and all around us, everywhere, anytime. And if we are not happy, if we're not peaceful, we can't share peace and happiness with others, even those we love, those who live under the same roof. If we are peaceful, if we are happy, we can smile and blossom like a flower. And everyone in our family, our entire society, will benefit from our peace. So I wish for all of us to be on that path, to find the inner peacefulness that allows us to notice the small things, the gifts of the beautiful world that we live in the midst of great suffering. There have always been both beautiful things and quite awful things. They don't seem likely to go anywhere. So it is up to us to figure out how to live in such a spectrum of things that are all kinds of neutral and slightly negative, slightly positive, very negative, very positive. It all exists all of the time. And so we have to figure out how to attune our attention and our emotional well-being, not only to the distress and the hardship, but also to the beauty and the gifts that are around us in the world. So I want to lead a short practice again for all of us called Self-Compassion Break. And I'm going to take the slides down for a moment. So this is just going to be just a couple minutes of practice. And I invite you again to come into a comfortable position, to sit for a moment, and to have the camera on or off. And if it's comfortable, to close the eyes, or just to softly keep the eyes open, but very soft and gazing down towards the floor, the lap. And beginning the practice, take just a couple of breaths, perhaps connecting with the calm and the ease of the earlier practice that we opened with. Breathing in know that you're breathing in. Breathing out, know that you are breathing out. Just following the air, cycling through the body. If it is comfortable, I invite you to put one hand on the heart and maybe on the solar plexus. It is a universal thing for mammals that touch, even our own touch of ourself, can signal that safety, that kindness, that compassion. It can be a hand on the arm, kind of saying they're there, a soothing touch. It's a basic, primal, universal signal that things are okay. And we can give ourselves that physical touch. It doesn't have to come from someone else. So we can begin to provide that care for ourselves, our system, our being, our well-being on our own. So you can also just bring the hands together. If you don't like a gesture on the body, you could just bring the hands together. Maybe squeeze one hand in the other as if to say, I am here, self. I'm here with you. I'm here in this present moment. And then I invite you now in this practice to bring to mind something difficult or unpleasant that's been in your life the past week or so. And on a scale of intensity and difficulty from 1 to 10, pick something around a 3 or a 2, maybe a 4. Don't pick something that's up at an 8 or a 9 and a 10, not something causing you great distress. Pick more small, humble, little difficulty, maybe an everyday one. Maybe it's something new, but it's pretty mild. And just think about that situation, something that's bringing you a bit of discomfort. Maybe where you didn't behave so skillfully, where how you responded and your attitude, your energy, or what you said maybe wasn't the best. Wasn't if you'd planned it out, you might have come up with something better, but in the moment it just was what it was, maybe a little messy. If you think of more than one thing, let it all go, pick only one. Don't overwhelm yourself with multiple things. Just settle on one thing. And bring it in. What happened? What was that difficulty like? Where did you notice it in the body? Was there a physical place this unease showed up? And just holding that, recognizing it, and repeating this to yourself, saying it to yourself. This is a moment of suffering, of unease. Many people go through moments like this. May I be kind to myself in this moment. May I give myself what I need in this moment. And it's just those 3 simple phrases. I'm going to repeat them again. Thinking about this moment of stress or difficulty. First is the acknowledgement. This is a moment of suffering or unease, distress. Lots of other people go through moments like this. May I be kind to myself in this moment. And let's close the practice taking just a couple more breaths, being kind to yourself in this moment, breathing in that kindness or anything else you need. The in-breath, on the out-breath, sharing it with the full body, the environment around you. Breathing in and breathing out. And then gently opening the eyes again, coming back into the room. I thank you for your practice. And we can remember that we practice not only for ourselves, but for the community of all beings. When we take care of ourselves, it improves our ability to be present and respond more skillfully, with more kindness, more aptitude to whatever situation or other is around us, whatever groups we're part of, the different initiatives we're leading in our work and in our lives. Each moment of practice that renews us allows us to offer that to others. It really is a shared way of being. And so it is good for everyone when we can take the time to make space for practice. And if we had a little more time, I would actually have us do breakouts, but the time has gone, as time does. It just goes. And so I think let's speak together as a group instead of doing breakouts this time around. And, I will share just 2 prompt questions that I was thinking about for if we had time in small groups, but we don't quite. So in the full group instead, what did you notice in that practice? And or either one, how will you be part of a compassion revolution to help transform our world for self, others, and the society of all beings? So I'm going to take the slides down again, but I just wanted to close here with our questions or comments. I am on LinkedIn. That's a nice way to connect. I would love to connect with all of you here. It's Juliet Trail, and so you can look up linkedin.com and Juliet-Trail is the URL, or just look up my name. And Donna will be sending out information on the presenters, including our email addresses, so you'll receive a copy of this email if you want to get in touch with me to discuss further, or for me to come and work with a group virtually or in person that you are a part of. I would be delighted to do so. This is the focus of my work now, is to come and speak about compassion and connection to nature and all beings is the core of my work across everything I work on. So that is the end of my slides, and I'm going to go into gallery view. Anyone who is able to turn your camera on, it would be lovely to see one another at this time. And I see Natalie's hand, so I invite you to come off mute and share your question or comment or reflection.
Thank you, Juliet. That was a wonderful presentation and a beautiful practice. And I was clapping hands for you there. But to answer your question, how will I be part of a compassionate network? Well, I've been signing up to all of those wonderful sites that you were talking about in your presentations. So that's what I'm going to be doing, to spread the word and be part of this wonderful, wonderful movement that you've been talking to us about. Thank you. Super presentation.
Thank you. Welcome, and look forward to seeing you again. Anyone else who might like to share how that practice was for you, or any reflection on the talk today? Haha, Stephanie, I see you now. Would you share a reflection with us? This is my friend Stephanie. She's in Germany.
Yes, I'm in the basement.
You're bringing peace. You're bringing peace to the basement. Basements need peace too. It's nothing wrong with being under the earth.
Yeah, I just would like to respond to the second question. And I mean, we met each other through a network, through a contemplative network, and that's just yeah. For me, it's been, well, it sounds maybe a bit exaggerated, but there's some truth in it, life-saving, and so much of confirmation of things I've always felt. And suddenly there was like a network, there were other people sharing the same ideas, and a lot of things in my life coming together, and that's been very valuable. And I'm so fortunate to have finally and we haven't updated each other for a long time, Juliet, a workplace that I wouldn't call it a contemplative workplace, but there's so many values that they do not just put on their website and, in presentations, but the lived values that I experience every day. And that is so valuable. And I will be doing a contemplative walk workshop very soon in November for my colleagues. And yeah, that's very dear to my heart. And I think it's a very receptive environment, although I've left higher education. But yeah, still to have the connection, and once in a while I'll go back to university. So thanks again, and it's always nice to meet like-minded people and see the network thriving. So
thank you so much. Good to see you. Anyone else? Michael, I see you're not on mute.
I just want to say I've done this before and I've got lots of benefits from it. I have to also say that because I have emotional problems, that I do take an antidepressant. But mindfulness, I've experienced over the last 6 months, been more and more aware of it. And it really has helped me in dealing with everyday life. It gives you the calm that you need. And I've also in the neighborhood helped lots of people that aren't as fortunate as myself. I live in a community of older people, and all I think of is when I get older, I hope somebody can help me like I'm helping them. And that makes me feel good every day when I can do something like that, and they appreciate it. So I thank you for your presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Michael. Yeah, we have to give in the way of the world we want to live in. And we hope that we see it reflected back. And often we do, not without fail. There's exceptions, but often what we're able to put out into the world is what is drawn and attracted to us and able to come back. And the more of us that just hold to our values, like Stephanie was saying, they may not be articulated in using contemplative words, using mindfulness words. That's fine. It doesn't really matter what you call it. What matters is that quality of being, to be kind, to be loving, to be caring, concerned. We can use any word in any language for it, but it's a quality of being, it's a state of being that is helpful. And sometimes we can't do anything about the suffering. It can be great physical distress or trauma or emotional distress. It can be situations that are not within our control. And yet we can still show up just to stay present, to not get shut down, to not dismiss someone's humanity. Like the sign I had of the person that was perhaps experiencing homelessness, holding the sign, seeking human kindness. I know a number of healthcare workers that do hospice care work. And it's not that you're suddenly going to prevent someone who is near death from the process of dying. That's coming. And it's coming for all of us. But we can be present. We can still say, I'm with you. And we can hold that space for ourselves too, even when we're suffering. We may not be able to change the suffering, but we can stay more present with ourselves. Because we have strategies for departing and not being present, to listen to something, to do something, to eat something, to exercise more. It can be a seemingly healthful pattern, or something we know is destructive, like alcohol or drugs. Something that seems neutral, maybe it's okay, like a lot of social media or a lot of binging Netflix or something. These are avoidance tactics, and we can do them so that we don't check in and know ourselves. So we don't check in and stay present and feel our feelings. And it's really hard when we're addressing suffering, when we're paying attention to it, our own or another's, and we can't change it. But that's not always the point. We can bring a different quality of being, of staying present, of not avoiding, not shutting down on that other person and on ourselves, regardless of the ability for the difficult circumstance to be changed. It's often beyond our control, but we can control how we act, and we can help work with our emotions. We can't suddenly say, emotions, stop having depression, emotions, stop having trauma. We can't turn on and off our human experience. It's in our body, it's somatic, it's nervous system, it's intergenerational and inherited. We live in a complex world. And so we can't change all of that. So how do we live in this world? And how do we find the resilience to not let it wear us down, to not get stuck in burnout? How do we find the resilience to persist, to try to be different, to try to make change? And really use any language that works in your context. If contemplative language works, to teach about it, define it for people, like I tried to define what compassion is for me, and what empathy is and how they're different, because that's a place I see a lot of confusion. But I am a contemplative educator, so I'm able to use that language and try to be defining it. But I'm also happy to just be kind and show up. And, I worked in the School of Medicine for 5 years as the special assistant to the dean, sort of chief of staff type position. And, I just had to show up to committees and show up to my meetings with my colleagues. And my mom at the time would say, it's so weird to me that you're not a teacher, because I was being an administrator. Oh God, ugh, an administrator. And I was like, I don't know. I think you're discounting our capacity to be constantly learning from each other, that we're all teachers all the time. It doesn't matter what job title I'm in right now. I do feel like I can offer something that maybe provides a new possibility. And that's really what education is, providing possibilities, choices, options to empower people with more knowledge and perhaps more skill and more capability, more capacity to take advantage of new choices, to think in new ways, to feel in our bodies and in our minds, our psyches, our emotions in new ways, and to therefore act and be in the world in some new ways. And that's what education is for. I think we can do it everywhere. So I thank all of you for being here. If there's any other comment, or maybe the last comment can be from Donna before we need to move to our next speaker. It's just my absolute delight and pleasure to meet all of you, and hopefully I'll see all of you again and get to know you more somehow in the future. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for presenting for us today. I cannot begin to tell you how inspired I've been by what you've said. And Michael, you especially have inspired me, because many times we feel I don't know enough, or I haven't got enough knowledge or experience or training. But what you're doing is what we're trying to do. And that is, in teaching, we say each one teach one. In this case, each one reach one. And one by one, person by person, it's that domino effect, I think, that we're having, that we're seeing in the work that we're doing. Sometimes we think, I'm not doing enough, or I'm not making a difference, but stay the course and know that every person you reach, every person you even have begin to think about this is significant. So again, Juliet, I thank you so much for your time today. I thank all of you for coming to this first presentation. I am going to be stopping the recording. So let me do that first. Do it right.